So what's going on guys, Kates here and welcome back to a brand new video. For today I will show you the best war gloves build in Albion online. So I will show you what abilities and armor you want to get. Then I will explain every single skill and what is the best skill rotation that you want to use for both PvP and PvE. And then lastly I will show you the best gameplay so you would be able to get the best results and highest damage possible and much more. So no matter how much silver you have, or how high or low your weapon levels are, you can easily use this build and follow the step-by-step guide. So, if this sounds interesting to you, then let's get right into it. So then moving over to the quick build introduction, and for the weapon we are going to use the battle bracers. This build has insane amount of mobility skills that will give us bunch of crowd control buffs and very good damage if we use our skills in the correct order. And I will show you two similar setups, one for PvP and one for PvE. So no matter what type of activity you want to do, you will get the best performance out of your weapon. And then finally you can use the setup starting with tier 4 equipment and pretty low levels in the Destiny board. So no matter what type of player you are, veteran or new, this build is definitely for you. So then moving over to the build, and for the weapon we are going to go with the battle bracers. So for your Q you pick the second option, then for your W you pick the first option, and then lastly for your passive you go with the hard catch, which is the fourth option. Then for the helmet you want to get the mage cowl and pick the third ability and first passive. Then for chest armor go with the assassin's jacket and pick the third ability and first passive. Then for boots go with the cleric sandals and choose the second ability and second passive. Then for your cape you pick the undead cape, and then lastly for your consumables you want to go with the poison potions and dead water eels too. But then for alternatives, specifically for fame farming and any type of mob farming, if we want to go with the full damage build, then we want to switch our assassin's jacket with the stalker's jacket and pick the third ability and first passive. The best thing about the switch is that both are leather armor, so you can get the same stats and buffs, but only you will use invisibility for PvP and then the electric field for mob farming. And then lastly again, if we want to orientate more on PvE, then we want to switch our undead cape with the Thetford cape. This is another pure damage cape that is amazing for PvE. And as I said in other videos, the best builds in my opinion are versatile, so you can get 100% performance no matter in what type of event you are participating. So that's why having multiple options and alternatives is the way to go. Okay, so now let's go over to the gameplay, where I will show you the best way to play this build. So for the first Q spell we have the Dragon Leap, and this ability is a 2-in-1 skill. So we will dash towards the enemy and kick all enemies in 2.5 meter range. And if at least one of our kicks land on the enemy, then we will get our other half of the skill, which this time we will leap towards the enemy position, and we will do damage more than the first time. And plus all enemies will be thrown in the air for 0.5 seconds. So we will be able to interrupt enemy casting spells. Overall the skill is simple but great, and it will do damage in AoE, so we can use it for both PvE and PvP. Then for the next skill we have the W, which this ability will dash towards the enemy, repeatedly kicking and dealing damage even up to 3 times. If you land a kick on the enemy, then he will be pulled alongside with you, so especially if you are trying to catch a player or save your teammate, then this is a great utility skill. Then our E skill is called the Falcon Smash, which will make our character float in the air and become immune to any effect. And if we press the skill again while in the air, then we will dive towards the enemy and deal massive amounts of damage in 6 meter range, depending on how close the enemy was standing from our first up in the air position. So simply put, we want to attack our enemy with one of our Q or W skills to get as close to the enemy as possible, and then we use our E skill twice, so we would be right on the enemy and do a lot of damage. And as you can tell, this E skill is not only good for damage, but you can as well use it for defense, because in this case if you get overwhelmed by a lot of enemies, you can absorb a lot of damage and negative spells by going up in the air. Then our R skill is called the Ambush, which is a simple invisibility spell that makes us invisible for few seconds. And when we come out of the invis, then we can do 40% more damage if we stayed invisible for at least 5 seconds. Then our next skill is the D spell, which is called the Fire Breath. This is a simple damage ability that will set the enemies on fire and deal magic damage over 3 seconds in AoE range. And then finally we have the F skill, which is a basic movement speed increase ability. that will give us 80% speed boost and restore our energy for 5 seconds. And then of course we still have our cape and consumables. So we are using poison potions for extra throw damage. Then we are using the stew to increase our damage and cooldown reduction. And then of course we have the undead cape, which in PvP is amazing because if we get below 50% health, then we will become invisible. So if you never want to die or go down, then this is a great cape. But then if you don't care that much about versatility builds and PvP, but you only care about pure damage with no defensive skills, so a build that is mainly meant for farming monsters, then I would switch our cape to the Tetford cape. And this will give us that every 15 seconds when we auto attack the enemy, we will do lightning damage passively. And then finally, if we switch our assassin's jacket for the stalker's jacket, so now we will get the electric field, which when we press the skill, will activate this massive field that will last for 7 seconds and do a lot of damage in AoE range. And then on top of all of this, we will even have our cabbage soup in the inventory to use if we ever get in trouble. So what you want to do is, if you ever get chased or even run away on low health, then if you keep running and get out of combat, then you can switch to the soup and use it, and in few seconds your health will regen to full because of the 270% health regeneration buff. So this is a simple trick that we can use. But you do need to keep in mind that the soup is like any other food consumable, so it will overrun our stew because they don't stack. So I would recommend to only use it very rarely. So with all of this said, now let's move over to the rotation. And PvE and PvP basically work the same way. So then at the beginning of the fight we want to use our Dragon Leap twice. Then if the enemy is very close to us, then we use our E skill twice again. Like I said previously, the first E press will push us in the air, and then the second E press will make us smash to the ground and do damage. And then finally we can use our W and D skill, which are basic but amazing damage skills. And then from here we can use poison potions if the enemy is still alive, and then use the RNF skill depending on the fight, as long as you understand that invisibility and run skill can be used both offensively and defensively. So now let's see what we did in this rotation. But first, while using the Q skill twice, we will dash towards the enemy twice and do damage. This skill of course will do a bunch of damage, but it's mainly meant to get close to the enemy. So then we can use our E skill twice, which will do even more damage. And as I said, we want the enemy as close as possible, so our E skill can do as much damage as possible. And then finally from here we can use our auto attacks W and D skills, which will burn and kick the enemy for even more damage. One of the best things I love about this build is that yes, I gave you the best and most optimal skill rotation, but as there aren't any real stacks, so if you want to, you can use any of your skills in whatever order you want, as long as you always are close to the enemy to take the advantage of the close proximity damage buff and the movement buffs we get from our Q and W, then everything else is up to you, and that's about it. So with that said, I really do appreciate everyone for watching guys, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any suggestions, feedback or other good Albion online builds that you would like to see in the next video, then feel free to leave your comments in the comment section down below. And while you're doing that, please click like, subscribe and enable that notification bell, so this way you could support the channel and you will not miss any more amazing content. With all this said, you have an amazing day and I will see you in my next video, so take it easy, peace.